The massive Zephyrian monitoring station drifted silently through the void. Its crystalline sensors pointed toward the small blue planet they had been watching for over 300 years. Commander Velthar stood before the main observation deck, his 6 arms folded behind his back as holographic displays showed the latest intelligence from Earth. "Still playing with fire and metal," he said to his second-in-command, Officer Crix Val. The footage showed a human rocket struggling to break free from Earth's gravity, thick plumes of chemical exhaust trailing behind it, like a primitive torch in the darkness. Crix Val's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among their species. "Look at them, Commander. They strap themselves to controlled explosions just to reach their own moon. My offspring could design better propulsion systems." Velthar enlarged the display, showing sprawling human cities with their glowing lights, and endless streams of traffic. 3 centuries of observation, and what do we have to show for it? The same chemical rockets they were using when we first discovered them, the same tribal conflicts over patches of dirt and liquid hydrocarbons. The bridge buzzed with activity as junior officers processed data streams from dozens of surveillance probes hidden throughout the solar system. Each probe, no larger than a grain of sand, transmitted continuous information about human activities. Their technology was so advanced that humans couldn't even detect the alien watchers studying their every move. The humans launched another probe toward their red planet yesterday, reported Science Officer Zephyrin from her workstation. Chemical propulsion again, estimated travel time 7 months, pathetic efficiency. Velthar manipulated the holographic controls, bringing up archived footage from decades past. "Look at this. 50 years ago they were fighting with metal projectiles and crude explosives. Today they fight with slightly more advanced metal projectiles and crude explosives. Where is their progress?" The commander had served the Zephyrian collective for over 400 standard years, overseeing the cataloging of dozens of primitive worlds. Earth was proving to be one of the most disappointing discoveries in his career. Most species showed some technological advancement over a 3-century observation period. Humans seemed content to repeat the same mistakes over and over. "The Galactic Council's classification seems accurate," Crix Val observed, reviewing the official documentation. "Class D civilization, technologically primitive, culturally fractured, high probability of self-destruction before achieving interstellar capability." Velthar nodded grimly. The classification meant Earth would be scheduled for resource extraction in exactly 200 standard years. By then, the collective's xenobiologists predicted human civilization would have collapsed from environmental destruction, nuclear warfare, or simple resource depletion. The planet's vast water reserves and rare mineral deposits would then be harvested for the greater good of the galaxy. "Sometimes I wonder if we should just end their misery now," the commander mused, watching footage of human military conflicts. "They spend more energy fighting each other than they do advancing their species." But protocol was protocol. The collective had strict guidelines about interfering with primitive civilizations. Let them exhaust themselves naturally. It was cleaner that way, and it avoided the messy politics of the Galactic Council's ethics committees. Deep in the monitoring station's archives, automated systems catalogued every aspect of human behavior. Their art, their music, their literature, all of it filed away as curiosities of a species that would never reach the stars. The humans' dreams of space exploration were particularly amusing to the Zephyrian observers. Their primitive science, fiction imagined meeting alien civilizations as equals, never realizing they were already being studied, like insects under a lens. "Commander," called out Communications Officer Dexmore, "we're receiving the quarterly report request from High Command. Shall I transmit the standard assessment?" "Yes, send it along," Velthar replied without turning from the display. "Status unchanged. Technological stagnation continues. Recommend maintaining current observation protocols." As the report transmitted across the vast distances of space, Velthar returned his attention to Earth. On the display, he could see the IE, humans' largest space station, orbiting their planet, a crude assembly of metal modules that looked like children's toys compared to Zephyrian engineering. A few humans floated around outside, repairing some minor damage with primitive tools. "Look at them," he said to Crixval. "They think that little metal can in orbit represents the height of their achievement. They have no idea what real space technology looks like." What the Zephyrians didn't see, however, was the activity taking place 3 kilometers beneath the Korean peninsula. In a facility carved from solid rock and shielded by technology the aliens had never encountered, Dr. Jin Woo stood before a massive quantum computer, its processing cores humming with barely contained energy. The doctor's weathered hands moved across holographic interfaces that would have impressed even the Zephyrian observers if they had known to look for them. Around him, hundreds of human scientists worked in hushed concentration, their eyes bright with the knowledge that they were about to change everything. "Final calculations complete," Jinwoo whispered to himself, watching as the quantum computer confirmed what he had suspected for months. "We're ready." Above ground, the world continued its daily routine, unaware that humanity's greatest secret was about to be revealed. 3 years earlier, in the depths of a mountain facility that officially didn't exist, Dr. Jin Woo held a piece of metal that had fallen from the sky decades ago. The fragment was no bigger than his thumb, but it had changed everything humanity thought they knew about physics. "This shouldn't be possible," Dr. Hyojin said, watching her instruments as they analyzed the alien material for the 1,000th time. "The molecular structure defies every law we know. It's like the atoms are connected across dimensions." Jinwoo smiled, his eyes reflecting the strange blue glow emanating from the fragment. "That's because they are. Look at these readings. The material exists in multiple states simultaneously. It's not just metal, it's a window into folded space." The laboratory around them buzzed with activity. Hundreds of scientists from dozens of countries worked in perfect secrecy, united by a discovery that could either save humanity or destroy it. The facility had been built using technology reverse-engineered from 17 different crash sites around the world, each one carefully covered up by governments who knew they were dealing with something beyond human understanding. "Remember, when we thought that crash in Siberia was just a meteorite?" Hyojin laughed, adjusting her holographic displays. 3 months of analysis before we realized the fragments were artificially constructed. Someone out there has been dropping pieces of their technology on us for decades." Jinwoo nodded, remembering those early days of discovery. The first breakthrough had come when they realized the fragments weren't random debris. They were components of larger systems, each piece containing information about advanced propulsion, energy generation, and materials science. It was as if someone had been leaving them clues. "The question is whether they dropped these accidentally or on purpose," he mused, manipulating a 3-dimensional model of quantum particle interactions. "Either way, we're about to use their own technology against them." The real breakthrough had happened 6 months ago, when Hyojin discovered how to create quantum entanglement on a massive scale. Traditional human science said it was impossible to entangle objects larger than individual particles, but the alien fragments showed a different way. By creating resonance fields that existed partially outside normal space-time, they could fold the universe itself. "Quantum entanglement drive test 17 is ready," announced Dr. Taemin from across the laboratory. The young physicist had been working for 36 hours straight, his eyes red with exhaustion but bright with excitement. "We've successfully entangled 2 one-ton masses across a distance of 50 kilometers. Hyojin's fingers flew across her controls, bringing up the test data. "Incredible. The energy signature is completely clean. No radiation, no gravitational distortion, no exotic particles. It's like the 2 masses simply exist in the same location, despite being physically separated." "That's because they do," Jin Woo explained, his voice filled with wonder even after months of working with the technology. "We're not moving through space anymore. We're convincing space that 2 different locations are actually the same place." Above them, 3 kilometers of solid rock and advanced shielding hid their work from any possible detection. The world's governments had spared no expense in keeping the project secret. While humanity appeared to struggle with primitive rockets and basic space stations, the truth was far different. "The Phoenix project is ready for final assembly," reported Dr. Yoon Seo from her workstation. "All components have been successfully transported to the orbital facility. Captain Min Ho confirms that the crew is prepared for initial testing." The orbital facility itself was a marvel of human engineering enhanced by alien technology. Cloaked by the same dimensional folding techniques that powered their new drive systems, it existed in a pocket of folded space that made it invisible to any conventional detection method. Even the Zephyrian observers, with all their advanced sensors, couldn't perceive something that technically wasn't entirely present in normal space-time. Jinwoo activated a secure communication link to the hidden shipyard. "Captain Minho, this is Dr. Jinwoo. How does she look?" The response came back immediately, the captain's voice filled with pride. "Doctor, she's beautiful. The Phoenix is unlike anything humans have ever built. Her quantum entanglement drives are integrated perfectly with the hull structure. The entire ship exists partially in folded space. We could park her next to an alien mothership, and they wouldn't detect us until we chose to be seen." Ye-Jin pulled up a visual feed from the orbital facility, showing the completed Starship in all its glory. The Phoenix was sleek and elegant, her hull composed of the same reality-bending materials they had reverse-engineered from the alien fragments. Unlike the crude metal cylinders that humanity launched into space for public consumption, this vessel looked like it had been carved from liquid starlight. "The crew has completed all training protocols," Captain Minho continued. "We've mastered navigation in folded space, weapons systems that exist across multiple dimensions, and communication techniques that work faster than light. We're ready to show the galaxy what humans can really accomplish." Dr. Taemin looked up from his calculations. "The beautiful thing is we didn't just copy their technology. We improved it. Human creativity combined with alien science has produced something neither species could have achieved alone." Jinwoo smiled as he watched the Phoenix conduct its final systems tests. The ship moved through space in ways that would have terrified the Zephyrian observers, blinking in and out of existence, appearing in multiple locations simultaneously, bending light and gravity around her hull like a living thing. 300 years they've been watching us," he said quietly. 300 years of thinking we're primitive and helpless. Time to change their minds." The Zephyrian fleet tore through the fabric of space itself, their massive vessels emerging from hyperspace like metal mountains breaking through an invisible ocean. 12 ships in perfect formation, each one stretching over 2 kilometers in length, their hulls gleaming with the cold light of stars. This was the collective standard intimidation force, more than enough firepower to reduce a primitive civilization to ash within hours. Commander Velthar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's Edge, watching the small blue planet grow larger on his displays. 3 centuries of observation had prepared him for this moment. The humans would see their ships panic and surrender within minutes. It was always the same with primitive species. "Tactical report," he commanded, his 6 arms working multiple control surfaces simultaneously. "All systems optimal, Commander," reported Officer Krixval. "Plasma cannons charged, shield generators at maximum efficiency. The human vessels we've observed are still in orbit around their planet, crude metal constructions that pose no threat to our armor." Velthar nodded with satisfaction. Through the massive viewports, he could see Earth's moon growing visible, that barren rock where humans had planted their pathetic flags decades ago. Soon, those flags would be replaced with Zephyrian extraction markers. "Open a communication. Channel to the planet," he ordered. "Let's get this over with quickly." But before the communications officer could comply, every alarm on the bridge began screaming at once. Red warning lights bathed the command center in an angry glow as tactical displays exploded with impossible readings. "Commander," shouted Tactical Officer Dexmore, his voice cracking with disbelief. "Unknown contact materializing directly off. Our starboard bow, distance 50 meters. Velthar spun toward the tactical display, his 4 eyes widening in shock. Where empty space had existed moments before, a vessel was shimmering into existence like a ghost becoming solid. The ship was unlike anything in the Zephyrian databases, sleek and organic-looking, its hull seeming to bend light around it in the impossible ways. "How did they—" Velthar began, but his words were cut off as the impossible ship finished materializing. It was beautiful in a way that made Zephyrian engineering look crude and blocky. The vessel moved with liquid grace, positioning itself perfectly alongside the alien mothership, as if it had always been there. "Shields up!" "Weapons hot," Velthar commanded. But his crew was already moving. The bridge erupted in activity as officers tried to understand what they were seeing. "Sir, the contact is broadcasting on all frequencies," reported Communications Officer Zephyrin. "Audio and visual transmission incoming." "On screen," Velthar ordered, his voice tight with confusion and growing alarm. The display flickered, and suddenly they were looking at a human face. The man was calm, professional, wearing a uniform that looked far more advanced than anything they had observed from Earth. Behind him, they could glimpse a bridge that rivaled their own in sophistication. "Zephyrian vessels," the human said, his voice carrying the quiet authority of someone accustomed to command. "This is Captain Min-Ho of the Earth Defense Force. You are trespassing in human space. State your intentions." The bridge fell silent. In 3 centuries of observation, no human had ever addressed them directly. The primitives weren't supposed to know they existed, much less have the technology to detect and intercept their fleet. "Impossible," whispered Krixval. "The humans don't have faster-than-light communication. They don't have detection systems that can penetrate our stealth fields. They certainly don't have ships that can materialize out of nowhere." Velthar stared at the human captain, his mind racing. "Run a full tactical analysis of that vessel. I want to know everything. Power, signature weapon systems, propulsion method." The seconds ticked by as the crew worked frantically at their consoles. Finally, Science Officer Zephyrin looked up, her face pale with shock. "Commander, the analysis is disturbing. That ship doesn't register on half our sensors. The parts we can detect show technology that shouldn't exist. Their power core is generating energy signatures I've never seen before, and their hull material appears to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously." "Explain," Velthar demanded. "Sir, it's as if the ship is only partially present in normal space-time. Our weapons wouldn't be able to target it properly, and our shields wouldn't know how to defend against whatever they're carrying." On the screen, Captain Min-Ho waited patiently for a response, his expression unreadable. Behind him, other human officers worked at control stations that looked centuries ahead of anything the Zephyrians had observed on Earth. "This is some kind of trick," Velthar said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Perhaps they've been hiding their true capabilities." "Commander," interrupted Tactical Officer Dexmore, his voice strained. "We have multiple new contacts appearing throughout the fleet. Sir, we're surrounded." The tactical display showed the impossible truth. Human vessels were materializing all around the Zephyrian formation, appearing from nowhere like predators, emerging from tall grass. Each ship was unique, their designs flowing and organic, completely unlike the rigid geometric forms of collective engineering. 12 ships, reported Dexmore. "No, wait, 15. Sir, they keep appearing. I count 20 vessels now, all maintaining perfect formation around our fleet." Velthar felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries of military service. Fear. The primitive humans had not only detected their approach, but had somehow surrounded his entire fleet with technology that made his own ships look like antiques. "Captain Min-Ho," he said, activating the communication system, "I am Commander Velthar of the Zephyrian Collective. We were unaware that Earth possessed such advanced capabilities." The human captain smiled slightly. "You've been watching us for 300 years, Commander. Did you really think we wouldn't notice, or that we'd remain primitive forever?" Another human officer leaned into view, a woman wearing the insignia of a science officer. "Commander Velthar, your observation probes have been very helpful. We've learned a great deal from studying your technology. Thank you for the free education." The revelation hit Velthar like a physical blow. The humans hadn't just detected their surveillance, they had been studying it, learning from it, using Zephyrian technology to leap centuries ahead in their development. "This changes everything," he whispered, staring at the impossible sight of human ships that could appear and disappear at will, their technology somehow surpassing anything the galaxy had seen. Captain Min-Ho's voice came through the speakers again, calm and professional. "Commander, I'm going to ask you one more time. State your intentions in our space." For the first time in his long military career, Commander Velthar found himself without an answer. The space around Earth erupted into chaos as more Zephyrian ships tore through hyperspace. their hulls gleaming with weapons that could crack planets. Commander Velthar had called for reinforcements the moment he realized the humans weren't the primitives he expected. Now, 43 alien warships formed a massive battle formation, their combined firepower enough to sterilize entire star. "Systems! This should be sufficient," Velthar muttered, watching his expanded fleet take position. Even with their mysterious technology, the humans cannot possibly match this level of firepower. But as the Zephyrian reinforcements settled into their attack formations, something impossible began to happen. The empty space around them started to shimmer like heat waves rising from summer pavement. One by one, human ships began to materialize, from absolute nothingness, their sleek forms appearing as if they had been there all along, simply choosing to remain invisible. "By the void," whispered Science Officer Zephyrin, "how many ships do they have?" The tactical displays couldn't keep up. 10 human vessels became 20, then 30, then 50. Each ship was different from the others, as if human designers had thrown away every rule about standardization and mass production. Some vessels looked like flowing water frozen in time. Others resembled crystalline formations that bent light around their hulls, and still others appeared to be made of pure energy contained within geometric frameworks. Admiral So Young stood on the bridge of the Defiance, her flagship positioned at the center of the growing human fleet. Unlike the rigid militaristic bridges of Zephyrian ships, the human command center buzzed with creative energy. Officers moved with the fluid efficiency of a jazz ensemble, each person contributing their expertise to an ever-changing tactical symphony. "Enemy fleet analysis complete," reported Lieutenant Dongmin from his tactical station. 43 vessels, standard collective configuration. They're moving into formation Theta 7, just like the captured manuals predicted they would. So Young smiled, her eyes reflecting the soft blue glow of the quantum displays surrounding her. Predictable as always, 300 years of watching us, and they never bothered to study how humans actually fight. She had earned her position through decades of naval warfare, back when humanity thought their greatest enemies were other humans. Those experiences had taught her something the Zephyrians could never understand. Adaptability was worth more than raw firepower. "Lieutenant Wu Jin, what's our ship count?" she asked. 72 vessels and counting, Admiral," came the reply from the communication station. The Soul's Pride and her task force just finished their quantum jump from the outer system. Commander Byung-ho reports all systems ready. The Zephyrians had expected to face a handful of primitive rockets. Instead, they found themselves outnumbered by ships that seemed to operate on principles their science couldn't comprehend. Human vessels flickered in and out of existence, phasing between dimensions like ghosts with teeth. "Admiral," reported. "Tactical Officer Hai-1. The aliens are attempting to establish a defensive perimeter. They're trying to use their numbers to create overlapping fields of fire." So Young studied the tactical display, watching red dots representing enemy ships slowly arrange themselves into a textbook formation. "They're fighting the last war, not this one. Execute Operation Scattered Wind. Let's show them what chaos looks like." The human fleet exploded into motion, but not in any pattern the Zephyrians could predict or counter. Instead of maintaining formation, the ships scattered like leaves in a hurricane, each vessel moving independently while remaining connected through quantum-entangled communication networks that operated faster than light. Captain Jae Sung, aboard the Thunder's Edge, blinked his ship into existence directly behind a Zephyrian cruiser, fired a burst of quantum disruption torpedoes, then vanished again before the aliens could react. The enemy ship's shields collapsed as its power systems were turned inside out by weapons that attacked the fundamental structure of reality itself. "Target neutralized," he reported through the quantum link, moving to coordinates Gamma 7 Alpha. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out as human ships appeared, struck, and disappeared like phantoms. The Morning Star, under Captain Young-E, materialized inside a Zephyrian formation, her vessel's dimensional phasing technology allowing her to occupy the same space as enemy ships without collision. She fired from within their defensive perimeter. Then Quantum jumped away before they could return fire. "This is impossible," Velthar screamed on his bridge, as tactical displays showed his fleet being torn apart by enemies that seemed to exist everywhere and nowhere at once. Ships cannot simply appear inside other ships. Matter cannot occupy the same space. Sir, reported his tactical officer, voice shaking, their technology appears to operate on quantum principles we don't understand. They're not moving through space. They're convincing space that they're already where they want to be. The human advantage wasn't just technological. While Zephyrian officers followed rigid protocols developed over millennia, human commanders improvised constantly. Admiral So Young watched her captains adapt their tactics in real time, creating new strategies on the fly as they discovered the capabilities of their quantum-enhanced vessels. Admiral, reported Lieutenant Dongmin, Captain Sang-min has discovered something interesting. The Horizon's dance can create temporal echoes, multiple versions of herself existing simultaneously for brief periods. Fascinating, So Young replied. Have him share the technique with the other captains. We'll see how the aliens handle fighting the same ship from 6 different time periods. The Zephyrians, bred for conquest and used to overwhelming primitive civilizations through superior technology, found themselves completely outmatched by human creativity. Their weapons couldn't lock onto targets that existed in multiple dimensions. Their shields couldn't block attacks that came from inside their own perimeter. Their tactical computers couldn't predict movements that violated every law of physics. They understood. Commander Velthar, came a transmission from one of his subordinates. We're losing ships faster than we can track. Request permission to withdraw to a safe distance and regroup. Velthar stared at his tactical display, watching red icons disappear one by one as human ships struck from impossible angles. In less than an hour, his technologically superior fleet had been reduced to a confused, demoralized force facing an enemy that seemed to exist outside the normal rules of warfare. Permission denied, he said through gritted teeth. We are the Zephyrian collective. We do not retreat from primitives. But even as he spoke the words, Velthar knew they were no longer fighting primitives. They were facing something far more dangerous, humans who had learned to turn creativity into a weapon. The battle raged for 3 brutal hours before Commander Velthar finally accepted what his tactical officers had been telling him for the past hour. They were beaten. His magnificent fleet, the pride of the Zephyrian collective, lay scattered across space like broken toys. 27 ships disabled, their crews alive but their vessels drifting helplessly, as human quantum weapons had somehow turned their own power systems against them. Sir, reported his communications officer, her voice barely above a whisper, the humans are broadcasting on all frequencies. They're offering medical assistance to our wounded. Velthar stared at the tactical display, showing the impossible sight of human ships moving among his disabled fleet, like nurses tending to patients. Instead of delivering killing blows to helpless enemies, the humans were actually helping repair life support systems and evacuating injured crew members. I don't understand, he muttered. We came here to destroy them. Why are they helping us? Captain Minho's voice came through the communication system, calm and professional. Commander Velthar, this is Captain Minho. We're prepared to accept your surrender and discuss terms. Will you agree to a ceasefire? The words tasted like poison in Velthar's mouth, but he had no choice. Yes, we agree to ceasefire terms. An hour later, Velthar found himself standing on his own bridge, but everything had changed. Human officers moved quietly among his crew, not as conquerors, but as guests. Their technology was so advanced that they had simply materialized aboard his flagship without triggering a single alarm. Captain Minho stood before him, flanked by Admiral So Young and a woman in scientist's robes who had been introduced as Dr. Hai Jin. The humans looked completely relaxed, as if they were attending a business meeting rather than accepting the surrender of a hostile alien fleet. How? Velthar asked, his voice heavy with defeat and confusion. How did you do this? 3 centuries of observation showed us a primitive species, barely capable of reaching their own moon. Admiral So Young smiled, but there was no mockery in her expression. You watched us for centuries, Commander, but you never tried to understand us. You saw our chemical rockets and assumed that was the limit of our capabilities. You observed our wars and concluded we were hopelessly primitive. Dr. Hai Jin stepped forward, holding a small crystalline device that glowed with inner light. What you didn't realize was that we were learning from you the entire time. Every probe you sent, every piece of technology that accidentally crashed on our world, we studied it all. Impossible, Velthar whispered. Our observation probes are undetectable by primitive sensors. They were undetectable, Captain Minho agreed. Until we reverse-engineered your stealth technology and learned to see through it. Did you really think you could watch a species for 300 years without some of them noticing strange lights in the sky? The revelation hit Velthar like a physical blow. For centuries, the collective had been accidentally educating their future enemies, dropping pieces of advanced technology that human scientists had been secretly studying and improving upon. Dr. He-Jin held up the crystalline device. This contains the complete specifications for quantum entanglement propulsion, the technology that allowed us to surprise your fleet today. We're prepared to share it freely with any species willing to join a new kind of galactic community. Share it? Velthar's 4 eyes widened in disbelief. You would give away your greatest military advantage. We don't want to rule the galaxy through fear, Admiral So Young explained. We've seen what happens when one species tries to dominate all others. Your own collective is proof that conquest creates only resentment and rebellion. Over the following weeks, as repair crews worked to restore the disabled Zephyrian ships, something remarkable began to happen. Human officers worked alongside alien engineers, sharing knowledge and techniques that had been closely guarded secrets for millennia. The humans didn't treat their former enemies as prisoners. They treated them as future allies. Your quantum propulsion technology is incredible, admitted Science Officer Zeph Rin as she worked with Dr. Hai-Jin to install new drive systems. But how did you advance so quickly? It should have taken centuries to develop this level of sophistication. Hai-Jin smiled as she calibrated a quantum resonance chamber. Human curiosity, combined with necessity. When you know someone is watching you from the shadows, planning to harvest your world's resources, it tends to motivate rapid technological advancement. Within months, the first human diplomatic missions began appearing throughout the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as ambassadors carrying an offer that no species could ignore. Join a new galactic alliance based on cooperation and mutual benefit, or face the possibility of being left behind as the universe moved toward a new era of unity. Captain Jae-sung commanded the diplomatic vessel New Horizon as it approached the Keith homeworld, a species that had been enslaved by the collective for over 1,000 years. His message was broadcast on all frequencies as his ship materialized in their orbit. People of Keth, this is Captain Jae-sung of the Human Alliance. We come offering freedom from the collective and partnership in building a better galaxy. The choice is yours. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, rebellion sparked across dozens of worlds as oppressed species realized they now had powerful allies. The collective's rigid hierarchy began to crumble as member species chose cooperation over conquest. On Earth, Admiral So Young stood in the command center that had once been a secret facility beneath the Korean peninsula. Now it served as the headquarters for the growing Human Alliance, coordinating diplomatic and defense efforts across hundreds of star systems. Status report, she requested. Lieutenant Dongmin looked up from his quantum communication array. 47 species have formally joined the Alliance. The collective's territory has shrunk by 60% as their member worlds choose independence. Commander Velthar reports that the Zephyrian Home Council is prepared to sign a formal peace treaty. So Young nodded with satisfaction. The species that had once planned to harvest Earth's resources were now among their strongest allies, their military might redirected toward protecting smaller civilizations from other predatory empires. The Watchers have become the watched, she mused, looking out at the stars through the facility's quantum-enhanced viewing ports. And humanity's greatest strength, our ability to adapt, learn, and grow, has transformed us from potential victims into protectors of a new cosmic age. Dr. Jinwoo approached, carrying reports from scientific teams scattered across the galaxy. Admiral, we're receiving requests for quantum technology transfers from over 200 species. It seems everyone wants to join the Alliance. As human, Ships continued to appear at worlds throughout the galaxy. Offering the same choice the Zephyrians had once planned for Earth, it became clear that something fundamental had changed. The old order of conquest and domination was giving way to something new. A galactic community built on the revolutionary idea that cooperation was more powerful than coercion. The primitive species that had been scheduled for resource extraction had become the architects of a new cosmic civilization, proving that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from superior technology, but from the willingness to see potential allies where others see only enemies. The end